Welcome to Design Diary, the podcast where you get to look inside my board game design notebook as well as what's going on inside my head. We look at a new word each day from the sense of mechanics, tone, theme, or inspiration for a full game. Today's word is Agon. Conflict, especially the dramatic conflict between the chief characters in a literary work. Agon. Which is a word I've never heard of. It's very short. It's Agon. The Agon of a central character, self-besieged or plagued by circumstance, runs through the history of the director's films, as does the suspicion that a man's brutality to man may have a penitential purpose. It's just an example of it. So yeah, this word's really, this is like one of those words that's really hard for me to get anything out of, because conflict, the dramatic conflict between characters in a literary work, is the essence of every story ever told, you know? And my initial thoughts on it were that taking two characters from literature and tossing them into a ring together Super Smash Brothers style just kind of shot out from nowhere. But there's so much like that. Just, just throwing, any two characters at it. Or any 3 or 4, as in Smash Brothers is always best when there's a whole bunch going on. It's always fun. But I thought that this wasn't physical conflict, that it was dramatic conflict. Now, dramatic conflict doesn't remove physical conflict. Physical conflict is a type of dramatic conflict. But because it specifically said dramatic, I didn't know if physical was the way to go. But then I looked deeper into it, and it's very physical in its ancient Greek roots. It's an ancient Greek term for any sort of Olympic, feat, like athletics, chariot or horse racing, music or literature. And with that, I always had this, game concept going way, way back, was the decathlon of games, where, in a single box or deck of cards or whatever it is, you can play 10 different games in tournament style. Maybe even, going back to the video games from the beginning of this episode, not Super Smash Brothers style, but something like one of those like WarioWare style games where you have to quickly, they only play in like 5 seconds each and you have this quick goal. But what I thought was having this timer going or just a person running it, and all the cards are multi-use. You can use them in a whole bunch of different ways to play all 10, games in the decathlon. But you have to quickly determine the type of use and use the cards correctly. So, it's like flip the timer. You got 10 seconds to set up for this next game, and this next game is, the javelin throw. And you have your little deck of cards, and you have to get them in the proper form to do your javelin throw. And then, the next one comes up and it's like, boom, we've got 10 seconds. We're doing the relay race. And you have to get your cards set up for the relay race and know the rules for the relay race that are really quickly. And it's just a mess, really. But there is something in that. There's something interesting in that I think certain people might appreciate. Certain types of gamers, or just a party sense, or a convention, or somewhere. It's neat. But I wanted to keep going and see what else I could get out of this. And this is one of those words that's really hard. The first reason it's really hard is because I just made a game that is exactly this. And I don't like to promote anything on here, but I do want to tell experience. And I have a game that I made that's called Banned Books. And the whole idea of it is it's a solo game where you play as the main character in a banned book. Book banned by schools or state or the country or whatever it is. And you play as someone like Holden Caulfield from Catcher in the Rye. And your whole goal of the game is to use Holden Caulfield's attributes and what got him banned in the first place against the man. You're just kind of trying to kind of sway the man into unbanning your book. And it's the character from the book. It's very meta, fighting against the man, trying to stop them. So if I didn't already have that, I could go in that kind of direction. But for mechanics, I thought it was very hard. To me, a conflict or a contest of anything is in mechanics is like area control. That's a huge conflict to me. You can see it, the results are seen by everybody. You can see on the map, I'm controlling this area, you're controlling that. I'm working my way into your area, I'm trying to take it over. It's such a conflict. It's very, in your face, head to head gaming. Taking area control to a sports or athletics side, I was sitting here trying to think, and the only thing I could think of was there is a game that did it, and it's Chaos Ball. Is very much an area control sports influence game. But I was trying to think of it on a sports level. Area control is sort of in two-player, football, where you're getting your first down and claiming your... It's not exactly the same. It's definitely not exactly the same, but I love the whole mechanic in getting a first down in football where you restart your turn. You have one of your actions you can do in the game if you're successful is if you get far, and I'm talking about American football, that is, for our international listeners. If you can get far enough in a single turn, if you can advance enough in a single turn, you restart at the beginning of your turn. You can take in football it's 4 turns again. And if you get far enough in any of those 4 turns, you start your turns again, which I love from a gaming side. That's one of my favorite things about football. But I think there's something in storytelling or RPG style gaming that could, instead of, bringing all your characters from literature and throwing them in a battle, throwing them into a role-playing game or a story of some sorts. And there has to be something that does this already. So instead of creating a character, you're just choosing a character. Something like a Star Wars role-playing game is sort of already doing that, where you're choosing a character from the Star Wars universe, or you're building a character based on the universe, but really being able to think and say, like, I want to play as Holden Caulfield in this. It reminds me of the party game Bring Your Own Book, and I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's really neat. It's just, apples to apples, Cards Against Humanity style. There's a judge, you're voting on things, but it's all, every player has to bring their own book to the game. You bring a book, and then it gives you a certain prompt, and you find a sentence in the book that really, really works for that prompt. So it's different every time you play. It's really interesting in that. So being able to bring your own book from a role-playing sense and to really get deep into it is a cool concept. But to me, this is just so vague, this term, and it just doesn't spark anything for me. So I decided to go in a different way that I sort of had a little spark. But thinking of just the creation of a book or a story where you're going to, and I always think cards, for whatever reason, because they can have writing on them and things like that, but players are arranging the pages of a book in order, and you're kind of doing like a line going across the table or whatever, and you want it to be so that your character, everybody has a character at the start of the book, and you want your character end up as the victor or, the successful character at the end of the story. So each chapter has a beginning and end, and then in that beginning and end, you're going to play cards to it to affect your character and every other character. There has to be some sort of governing of what can't conflict each other and what has to happen before and after, and your placement. You might be able to place early or middle or late. There can be all kinds of cool ways to place the cards, and when you're done a certain amount of cards played or points accumulated across values on the cards or whatever it is, the chapter ends. Everybody assesses the chapter, and then it could determine some points, can determine some rewards and things like that, but it also sets the restrictions for the next chapter. So if I've established myself as mayor of the town, the next chapter, it starts out as me being mayor. So then I get to play my cards, and being mayor gives you some sort of power, so I can do things that I have power that I might not have had before. So I imagine there being lots of cards, different ways to assemble them, to obtain them, and things like that. And then you're playing them in order so certain events happen, and I don't know. To me, you want to get your character to the end, and to wrap this all around to the Agon, you want to survive the mental and physical conflict that is going to come along the way. with the placement of cards and the way people are doing things directly to each other, they can affect the cards before and after them. It can be very high conflict and just very head to head with different players. And then I want the gameplay through your actions to become the story. So that's as far as I got with this. It was a really hard word for me, and I actually talked longer about it than I thought I would. But I struggle with something like this, so I want to see if anybody else can get anything out of it. And I know you can, and I want to see what the variety is that comes out of this. Because I get stuck, and I just get hooked on it and can't go, especially when it's a hard word for me. So I want to hear what you guys have. So I'll catch you guys around, and we'll do this again tomorrow. Thanks.